There was a time when Hollywood sold perfection so convincingly that people believed its stars lived flawless lives. But the deeper we look, the clearer it becomes that the most admired men in American entertainment often chose life partners who didn't fit the glamorous, polished image the studios pushed onto magazine covers. Paul McCartney, for example, the most romantic and handsome face of the Beatles, once said he finally learned how to breathe freely only when he stopped trying to maintain an image and chose a partner who grounded him. That journey began years earlier, when the last unmarried Beatle broke millions of hearts and married Linda Eastman, an American photographer who looked nothing like the fantasy women fans imagined for him. She wore almost no makeup, had a kind but ordinary face, soft blonde hair, and a gentle, slightly uneven smile. Fans wrote furious letters, calling her plain, unworthy, and invisible. But Paul ignored all of it. She was the only person who treated him like a human being, not a legend. And so the world discovered that the most admired Beatle didn't want perfection, he wanted peace. Hollywood's golden age carried the same secret. Marlon Brando, considered the most flawless man of the 1950s, secretly married Movada Castaneda, a woman 7 years older with strong features, a large frame, earthy skin tones, and a harsh beauty that contrasted everything Hollywood celebrated. Their relationship began in 1953 at a lively party where Brando, as usual, drew every stare, while Movada seemed indifferent to him. That calmness hooked him. They spent years together quietly, marrying in a tiny ceremony that newspapers barely mentioned. But the pressures of fame, distance, and tragedy tore them apart. Movada stayed hidden while Brando's career burned hotter each year until rumors from the set of Mutiny on the Bounty finally ended everything. Dan Blocker, the giant star of Bonanza, towered like a moving wall beside his petite wife Dolphia Parker. She was gentle, short, and looked more like a school librarian than the partner of a massive television icon. They met before fame touched either of them, when Dan was just a worried theater student unsure of his path. Dolphia steadied him, and their marriage created a quiet world, far from Hollywood's noise. When Dan died suddenly in 1972, she vanished from public life entirely, protecting her family from the spotlight in one of the most private withdrawals TV history ever saw. Paul and Linda weren't alone in defying public expectations. Clark Gable, often called the King of Hollywood, once married Josephine Dillon, a woman nearly 20 years older. When they met, he was a poor, unpolished young man with a slouched posture, awkward laugh, and no hint of the commanding presence he later became famous for. Josephine transformed him: his voice, his posture, his confidence, even his smile. Their marriage was more teacher and student than husband and wife, and though it didn't last, she shaped the man the world would one day worship. Humphrey Bogart's marriage to Mayo Method created headlines for completely different reasons. Bogart carried a cool, quiet magnetism, while Mayo was known as the volcano, sharp-eyed, emotionally explosive, and powerful on stage. Their relationship was turbulent from the beginning: public arguments, jealousy, sudden studio visits, confrontations at theaters and restaurants. Bogart's rising fame only increased Mayo's insecurities, and their lives turned into a constant emotional storm until their marriage finally collapsed under its own weight. Gary Cooper, the tall, elegant face of American cinema, shocked fans when he chose Veronica "Rocky" Bale, a reserved high society woman with delicate, plain features and an intellectual air. She didn't chase the spotlight and barely watched films, while Cooper was adored nationwide. They lived at different speeds, Cooper traveling for work and hunting trips, Rocky anchoring herself in New York, yet they remained together until his death, quietly defying the expectations of a Hollywood that believed beautiful men should marry glamorous women. Spencer Tracy also spent much of his life beside Louise Treadwell, a woman with a gentle schoolteacher-like simplicity who supported him through his volatile moods, drinking battles, and relentless career pressures. Their relationship was imperfect, complicated, and often strained by Tracy's emotional burdens. But Louise remained the stabilizing force he always returned to, the quiet anchor in the life of a man who seemed confident on screen but battled chaos within. These marriages, some enduring, some collapsing, some forgotten, reveal a truth Hollywood rarely admits. Behind the polished images, behind the handsome faces preserved on film, these men were simply searching for someone who made them feel human, not admired, not worshipped, just understood. And often, the person who understood them best wasn't the flawless beauty the world expected, but the ordinary woman standing quietly outside the spotlight.